Chris Mann on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
So, the politicians are under starters' orders for the Euro and local council elections on May 22nd. The Prime Minister, David Cameron, launched the Conservatives' manifesto today, just a few hours after announcing new tougher penalties on gangmasters who exploit their workers. The extent of that illegal activity was exposed by an award-winning BBC Radio Cambridgeshire documentary last year. So, it was with that background that earlier today the Prime Minister joined me down the line from Downing Street.
You're listening to Drive Time on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
Prime Minister, welcome to BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
Thanks, great to be on your show.
As our reporters' investigations on this station showed, some migrant workers to this country have been treated appallingly, treated little better than slaves. How has this been allowed to happen, and how does that make you feel?
Well, it's absolutely appalling. This has happened in our country and continues to happen in our country, and that's why we need a really coordinated crackdown. We have a minimum wage in this country, we have proper employment legislation in this country, and this sort of modern-day slavery needs to be stamped out. And that's why I've taken the Gangmasters Licensing Authority and put it into the Home Office, where it'll work with the National Crime Agency, the body with some of Britain's most effective technology and policing, so that we bring more prosecutions and deal with more of these cases. We're doubling to 20,000 the amount of money you can be fined for employing an illegal worker. So we're taking as many steps as we can. But let's not be, let's recognise since 2005 there have been a lot of prosecutions, including two successful prosecutions in Cambridgeshire. So we are making steps forward, but these changes I'm announcing will make me move further and faster.
Most experts agree what the GLA really needs is teeth. What extra powers are you going to give it?
Well, the extra power comes from the £20,000 fine if people are found guilty, but also the extra power comes from putting it in the Home Office where it can work with the National Crime Agency. That is, an elite police body that looks at things like international drug dealing, people trafficking, and it will be able to use all its technology and expertise to make sure we deal with this.
But no additional powers, no more money, no more staff. As one critic, the local MEP, Richard Howard, put it, all you've done is rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Well, I think that's not only a cliché, but it's a completely false cliché. The Gangmasters Licensing Authority has got the same budget it's had before, 2.6 million. It has carried out 67 prosecutions, but putting it together with the National Crime Agency and making sure the penalties are greater, I think you will see, as you have seen actually in the east of England, some landmark prosecutions and some landmark action. I think you'll see more of that.
Well, Steve Barclay, the local Fenland MP, of course he's welcomed the measures, but he's expressed a desire for more civil penalties to be issued, for more of the crimes to come under civil law, because the burden of proof has to be higher if it's criminal convictions. What do you think?
Well, I think it's an interesting idea, and he's a very talented MP with some good thoughts. And so while we're not proposing powers to allow the Gangmasters Licensing Authority to issue monetary penalties, because we want prosecutions, I'm very happy to listen to those sorts of ideas for the future. But, let's be clear, when you've got people living in beds in sheds, being charged rent to live in appalling conditions, being paid below the minimum wage, frankly, I want the people doing this, I want them caught, I want them prosecuted, I want them convicted. The recent case we had a little bit east of you in Norfolk, the gangmaster got 7 years in prison, and frankly, quite right too.
All the more surprising, then, that it was your government that reduced this organisation's powers and cut its staff. Is this now an admission you got that wrong and things need to be changed?
Well, I think this organisation has been backed by the government. It's brought 67 prosecutions since its establishment. What we're doing now is, I think, putting it in the right part of government, the Home Office, and making sure it's part of a really big enforcement effort with the backing, as I say, of the police who've got the resources to help it with. We're taking other steps today as well, of course, which is saying employment agencies based in the UK cannot, as some do, only seek to gain employees from overseas. They have to advertise here in the UK as well. So there's a range of things being done. Also, extra action to make sure we crack down on people paying below the minimum wage.
Some people are seeing this rather cynically as a knee-jerk reaction ahead of the elections, part of your attempts to regain some of the immigration argument that you seem to be losing to UKIP in this part of the world.
It isn't that at all. It comes directly from the top, from the Prime Minister, where I've been unsatisfied by the way we're tackling this problem. I think it's a scandal that in Britain you have gangmasters behaving in this way. It's appalling to have this sort of modern-day slavery, and I want to make sure the government acts as effectively as possible. Not only that, we've also got the Modern Slavery Bill coming forward in the next session of Parliament, so that we modernise all our legislation in this area. So, people can say what they want, but I know why we're doing this. There is a problem. It is being gripped, but I want it to go further and faster in the future.
But the timing is no accident, isn't it? Just as we're approaching this vital election for you.
No, I mean, the timing is now because I've been calling together ministers in government and saying we need to grip this and do more. As soon as I got the results that I wanted, higher fines, putting these things in the Home Office. I've met with the National Crime Agency to talk about it. As soon as I've put those things in place, I've announced it. If you've got a better way of organising how we do these things, do let me know.
It does seem that the Conservatives here are facing a potential rout at the polls at the hands of UKIP. There was a big advance by them in the county council elections last year, of course. Certainly at those local elections in Sir John Major's old constituency in Huntingdonshire, almost certainly at the European elections, where UKIP is expected to gain more seats.
Well, I think let's have a proper debate about the issues. We've got European elections coming up, and there is a choice. You've got Labour and the Liberal Democrats saying everything's fine, keep it as it is, don't give people a choice. And you've got UKIP saying, let's just leave Europe altogether and give up on this organisation. The Conservatives uniquely are saying, look, we've got a plan to reform this organisation and then to give you, the British people, a choice in an in-out referendum before the end of 2017. And we're being very specific about what we want. People said to me, you'll never cut the budget. I've cut the budget. People said, you'll never get powers back from Europe. I got us out of those Euro bailout funds. People said, you'll never stand up to Europe. I vetoed an entire European treaty. So we've got a very clear, very positive message for these European elections, and I'm looking forward to launching our campaign today and getting out there and explaining to people why there is a positive offer here.
Well, you started that answer by saying let's have a proper debate about the issues. Well, you were offered that, of course, with Mr Clegg and Mr Farage, and you turned that down.
Well, I think the problem with that debate is you just had, one person who thinks there's absolutely nothing wrong with Europe and the other person thinking there's nothing right with Europe. So it was a pretty hopeless debate. Look, I debate these issues every week in Parliament. I'm about to be heading up to the northwest to debate these issues in Manchester. I'm debating them now with you. That's what matters, I think, is getting across the positive alternative there is from the Conservatives to reform the European Union and then allow people a choice.